Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make my favorite chicken pot pie. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully researched, well-tested, and perfected recipe with you. Today we're breaking from convention a little bit because my recipe is using a biscuit topping rather than the traditional pie crust topping. If you want to make yours that way, no problem, just see my notes in the printable recipe. Now let's get started by making that flaky, buttery biscuit layer. I'm making mine in a food processor. If you don't have one, again, see my notes on how to make it without. We'll combine 2 2/3 cups of all-purpose flour, 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 4 teaspoons of granulated sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. Pulse these together until they're combined. Using the food processor just makes everything so much faster and easier. Next, you will need 8 tablespoons of very cold unsalted butter. Cut this into about 8 pieces and scatter those evenly over your flour mixture. Now pulse everything together again until your mixture resembles coarse crumbs. Now you'll need 1 cup of milk and just pour this over your flour mixture. Of course, this should be very cold as well. And we'll pulse everything together again until that dough starts to clump together. You do not want to overdo it. Now I'm just going to transfer this onto a piece of plastic wrap, or you could use wax paper. You want to form this into a rectangle that's just under an inch thick. And wrap it tightly. And then place this in your fridge to get nice and cold while you prepare your chicken pot pie filling. Go ahead and preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to want to grab a large pot. I love using my Dutch oven, and I'll link to this in the description, and head over to your stovetop. Turn your stovetop heat to medium, and we're going to add 5 tablespoons of salted butter and cook this until it's melted. We'll add 1 diced medium yellow onion. This is about 1 cup. Cook this until the onion is tender and translucent. This will take about 3 to 5 minutes. Now to help thicken the sauce, we are going to add 6 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. You'll want to sprinkle this over the onion and then stir really well until it's nice and smooth. I'm going to be adding 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Now this amount has always been enough for me, but you'll want to taste test later on before this goes in the oven and make sure you don't need to add any more. If your broth had less salt in it, or if your chicken isn't as seasoned as mine, you might need to add a little bit more salt. We'll also add 3/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And my secret weapon for this chicken pot pie is 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. I also like to add 1/4 teaspoon of ground mustard. And just a dash of dried thyme. I usually keep it under 1/8 teaspoon. Make sure you stir this in really well. We're going to gradually pour in 3 cups of chicken broth. And we'll also stir in 1/2 cup of heavy cream. We're going to be adding 3 cups of peeled, diced russet potatoes, and I have cut these down so they're smaller than 1 inch in size. We'll also be adding 2 chopped carrots, and you don't need to peel these, but I do like to make sure that I cut them to be about the same size as the potatoes. That way they finish cooking at the same time. We'll also be adding 3 cups of frozen mixed vegetables. And stir everything together really well, and then bring it to a boil over medium-high heat, stirring occasionally. We're going to continue to stir until the liquid is thickened and the potatoes are tender. I just use a fork to pierce the potatoes and make sure they're nice and tender. You don't want to be biting into a raw potato. So once your potatoes are ready, we're going to go ahead and add our chicken. You'll need 3 cups of chicken for this recipe. It's shredded chicken that I'm using. You can use a picked rotisserie chicken, or you can shred your own chicken. I have some notes in the printable recipe if you're not using leftovers. So stir everything together really well, and then we'll remove this from the heat. So now we want to add our biscuit topping to the pot pie, so go ahead and grab that from the fridge. Cut this into 8 even-sized pieces. And anytime you're cutting biscuits, you want to make sure you press straight down, don't saw through the dough. Arrange these evenly on top of your pot pie. Of course, you could roll out this dough and you could cut it into circles or whatever shape you'd like. I'm just keeping it easy. Ideally, they should not be touching. If you want your biscuits to be a nice golden brown color on top when they're finished baking, brush them with a little bit of egg wash, which is just 1 egg beaten with about a teaspoon of water. And you don't want to leave these biscuits sitting in the pot pie for very long because they'll start to kind of melt if they sit for too long, so you want to hurry up and get this in the oven as soon as you can. We'll take this over to our 400° Fahrenheit preheated oven where it will need to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes. The biscuits should be a light golden brown color on top, but you do want to make sure that they're baked all the way through, so I just use a knife just to kind of pry them apart a little bit and make sure they're not gooey inside. All right, let's go ahead and dig in. And that is how you make one of my favorite dinner options. I hope you guys love this chicken pot pie, and if you try it out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.